Hanukkah is usually a very special and joyous season, but after the tragic event of October 7th, for many in Israel, as well as in all Jewish communities, it is more difficult to say Happy Hanukkah. These days are reminiscent of the days of the Maccabees. We turn the pages of history only to witness once again the same atrocities, only this time by Hamas, and what they did to men, women, elderly, children, and even babies. I've wept along with the families who've experienced this terror firsthand. These are my people. I have felt anger and fear and watch as the news and those on social media cast blame everywhere as they seek answers or promote their personal agendas. But then, as I do daily, I turn to the Torah, where I can at last find truth and hope. It says in Exodus 17, verse 18, "And the children of Israel went up armed out of the land of Egypt." So we see that Israel's army was formed thousands of years ago because we would always have to defend ourselves against our enemies. Now that first attack came from Amalek, as the Israelites were resting in Rephidim. And like Hamas, they didn't attack the army. Instead, we read in Deuteronomy 25:18, "He," meaning Amalek, "met you by the way and murdered those in the rear, all who were weak when you were faint and weary, and he did not fear God." I would like to look at this from a perspective I have not heard anywhere except in the Torah. Before each and every savage and seemingly unprovoked attack upon our people throughout our history, certain elements reoccur that can quite easily be overlooked. In this case, before Amalek's vicious attack, it says in Exodus 17, verses 3 and 4, "And the people thirsted there for water. And the people murmured against Moses and said, 'Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst?' And Moses cried to the Lord, saying, 'What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me.'" We were ready to stone the man who was God's best friend, who spoke to God face to face. God spoke to him face to face. He took us out of Egypt, out of slavery. God used him to perform miracle after miracle for us. That's why we ended up wandering in the desert for 40 years instead of 11 days. There's an expression in Hebrew, midah keneged midah, measure for measure. And this is true for all humanity. We get what we give, if not immediately, somewhere down the line. Now let's look at Hanukkah. We can read the entire story in the books of the Maccabees. We see that the Greek king Antiochus Epiphanes attacked us. He pillaged everything of value from the temple, desecrated it, forced all Torahs found to be burnt. Anyone circumcising their sons were murdered along with the babies, causing great mourning in Israel. But before this, what was happening? Where was the soul of our people? Here's what it says in 1 Maccabees. "It was then that there emerged from Israel a set of renegades who led many people astray. 'Come,' they said, 'let us ally ourselves with the Gentiles surrounding us. For since we separated ourselves from them, many misfortunes have overtaken us.' This proposal proved acceptable, and a number of the people eagerly approached the king, who authorized them to practice the Gentiles' observances. So they built a gym in Jerusalem, such as the Gentiles have, disguised their circumcision, and abandoned the Holy Torah, submitting to Gentile rule as willing slaves of impiety." How many of our people, in our own families, are assimilating to other religions, including atheism? I'm not standing in judgment, because I did it for many years and almost destroyed my life and that of my family. Every time we complain against God, forget Him, turn to false gods, we could say the modern golden calf, the love of money, we bring disaster upon ourselves. We're not being punished, as people say. But God does turn His face from us for a period of time, and He allows us to reap the consequences of our behavior. But He never abandons us. After the Amalekites attacked us, verse 14 says, this is back to Exodus, and the Lord said to Moses, write this for a memorial in the book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Alavai. We can hold on to God's promises because He never goes back on His word. But what can we do while we wait for God's promises to come true? It's almost too much to bear, especially as we experience all the growing anti-Semitism around the world, in our own neighborhoods. And believe me, when our enemies come for the Jews, those who stand with us, the stranger among us and the ger, well, you're next, if not with us. There is one prevailing message in the Torah. When we are faithful to our God, no outside enemy can touch us. So that begs the question, have we, as God's chosen people, been faithful to our God? Have we been faithful to our calling of being Or L'Goyim, as the chosen people of Israel? Have we been an example of the living Torah and its commandments, its 10 commandments? Thankfully, there's always a remnant. I can understand how the hypocrisy of Orthodox religions has turned us away from a relationship with our God, because we throw out the baby with the bathwater, but we must turn back to Him. That's the only way we can turn the tides of anti-Semitism. We can't change the minds of people by going to rallies and holding up our flags and banners, telling them not to hate. It's not a bad idea. But would Hitler have cared if we did that? This is a spiritual war. Now, I personally prefer not to pay too much attention to our enemies. I leave that to our generals and commanding officers. I would rather that we look at ourselves. We are the chosen people. My father used to say, let them choose someone else for a change. But I wondered, who was the they who chose us? And what were we chosen for? We didn't choose ourselves, so it can't be a matter of pride. The Torah shows us that the God of our fathers chose us, and being chosen is not a privilege. It's a great responsibility. Ask any good leader how difficult it is to lead by example. Israel was chosen to lead the other nations by example. We were to bring them the 10 commandments, the principles, the morals that all nations could, if they lived by, would live in peace. But how many are doing that? So as we light the candles of Hanukkah, let's remember what the high priest Matityahu cried out as he gathered his sons and the other young warriors. He said, even if every nation living in the king's dominions obeys him, meaning Antiochus, each forsaking its ancestral faith to conform to his decrees, I, my sons, and my brothers will still follow the covenant of our ancestors. That's the Torah. May heaven preserve us from forsaking the Torah and its observances, its commandments. As for the king's order, we will not follow them. We will not swerve from our own faith, either to the right or to the left. Let everyone who has any zeal for the Torah and takes his stand on the covenant come out and follow me. The stories in the Torah teach us moral principles by which we can live. Every Shabbat we chant the Eitz Chaim prayer as we turn the Torah to the ark. It's a tree of life to those who take hold of it, and those who support it are praiseworthy, and all its paths are peace. Shalom. Bring us back to you, Lord, and we shall come. Renew our days as of old. With God's help, our people won many battles. We were finally able to rededicate the temple and once again to celebrate Sukkot, a festival for all nations under one God. So let us each pray and ask the one and only God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to fulfill Psalm 139, verses 23 and 24 in our lives. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there is any way in me that is grievous to you, and lead me in your way everlasting. You know, there's a joke among our people. They attacked, we fought, we won, let's eat. Sounds cute, but there's one important element missing. Yes, we won, but because of our God, our prophet Zechariah told us, not by might, not by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord of hosts. And with that hope, I can say, Hanukkah Sameach, Happy Hanukkah.